Go live in the streets, Dad yelled. I left. I bought a mansion next day. 3 weeks later, he saw me on Forbes. Daughter, who is this? Blocked. My name is Harper Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and my father instructed me a few hours ago to go live on the streets. His precise words were, if you're so determined to pursue this stupid dream, pack your belongings and go live in the streets like the losers you admire. He had no idea I already earned $19.6 million per year. I was standing at the end of my childhood home's dining table, the same house where I previously proudly displayed my A+ report cards and honor roll certificates. Now those recollections felt like props in someone else's life. My father's face was flushed, his hand pressed against the table, and veins sprang out in his neck. My mother gazed at her plate, and the silence between his phrases stung more than his ranting. Harper, you're 32. You have no house, no husband, no real job. You sit in front of a laptop all day, pretending you're some big shot. If your little online fantasy fails, don't expect us to pick up the pieces. Go live on the streets and see how far your apps take you out there. Those words used to shatter me. Tonight, something unusual happened. A peculiar serenity came over me. I watched his lips tremble and his face contort with contempt, but all I could think about was the number in my email that morning. Skyline Sync generates annual recurring revenue from 19,842 owners. 3 weeks. That was how long it would take before the number appeared on the screen. He truly respected the local press, business pages, and the people he sought approval from. For the first time in my life, I recognized that I didn't need him. I picked up my overnight bag, which he hadn't seen I had already packed, and smiled. Okay, I replied softly. If that's what you want, if you've ever been told you're a failure by the person who should have believed in you the most, you know that grin isn't peace. It's a promise. Before I tell you what happened after I left with nothing but a bag and a secret, please tell me what time it is where you are right now. And where are you viewing from? I'm curious how far this revenge-filled family story will go. When I stepped off their front porch into the chilly Washington night, the air felt lighter, almost weightless, as if someone had finally severed the chain I'd been wearing for years. Before I even got to the sidewalk, the porch light turned off behind me. That was my father's last punctuation mark. No, come back. No, let's discuss later. It's just darkness. I threw my suitcase in the back of my car and sat in the driver's seat, palms on the steering wheel, heart racing. For a split second, I allowed myself to feel everything. Anger. Shame. The old pain of being the wrong daughter in the wrong family. Then my phone vibrated. A voice note from Lydia appeared on the lock screen. I texted her under the table while we were eating dinner. He urged me to go live on the street. I believe he means it. Now I'm going to hit play. Her voice filled the car with warmth and consistency. Harper, I know you're shivering right now, but listen to me, you don't have to convince him you're worth anything. You already are. You developed a complete company from your laptop while he chastised you for playing on the computer. That's not failure. You said Skyline's huge partnership signs in 3 weeks, right? Let them think you're nothing until the ink dries, then decide what sort of daughter you want to be to the people who tossed you out. I closed my eyes and leaned back. She was correct, and it hurt. For years, I'd attempted to soften the facts for my parents, reducing my accomplishments so it didn't sound like bragging, as if I was putting my strange tech life in their blue-collar faces. I informed them that I consulted remotely rather than owning a SaaS firm with clients in 15 countries. I said, we're doing okay, rather than we just passed 9 figures. They had always assumed that internet meant phony. Tonight, they had turned that presumption into a verdict. Useless. Failure. Get out. Part of me wanted to turn the car around, storm back inside, open my striped dashboard, and shove the numbers in my father's face until his pride gave way. Another part of me wasn't sure I wanted them anywhere near this version of myself. How can you reintegrate someone into your life after they've told you to go survive on concrete? Have you ever needed a friend to remind you that your worth does not diminish simply because someone you love refuses to perceive it? I pressed the video call button before I could alter my mind. Lydia reacted quickly, her hair in a sloppy ponytail, and blue light flashing off her glasses. There she is, she replied gently. Tell me exactly what he said. Word for word. I repeated it, each syllable tasted like rust in my mouth. After I finished, she took a long breath. Okay, then here's what we're going to do. You're not going to waste another breath begging for respect. You're going to treat the next 3 weeks like a countdown. You've got that enterprise contract with Horizon Dynamics on the table. Right when that's signed and announced, your ARR goes public. The valuation doubles. And the same people who call you a loser now will be bragging that they always believed in you. Your vengeance isn't screaming back tonight. It's undeniable achievement that humiliates them in front of everyone they were trying to impress by pulling you down. I laughed, but it wasn't a genuine chuckle. And in the meantime, I'm technically homeless, according to my father. You have a high-rise in Seattle and equity in your own company, Harper. You're not homeless. He just handed you the permission slip to stop trying to keep the peace. Take it. Dead it. Her comments were both burning and soothing. I recalled every time my father had compared me to Jordan, "At least your sister works a real job," and every time my mother inquired, "Are you sure this computer thing is safe?" I remained patient, hoping that one day a single major accomplishment would flip a switch in their minds and make them proud. Tonight I discovered that for some folks, there is no switch. "So, what now?" I muttered. Lydia's eyes softened. "Now you drive back to Seattle. You open your laptop. You record everything. How you feel. What they said. What you want. Turn it into fuel. In 3 weeks, when you're standing on that stage next to Horizon's CEO, your story will hit different. And if you ever decide to let them back into your life, it will be on your terms." I took one last look at the gloomy home. There are no silhouettes in the windows. No one was watching me go. "Fine," I said. "Then tonight is the last night I drive away from here feeling small." I placed the automobile into drive. As I pushed away, a sharp and frigid notion entered my mind. Maybe retribution wasn't about causing them pain. It was about finally refusing to allow them to hurt me. Have you ever walked away from your family to keep your sanity? Keep an eye out, because the next 3 weeks of my life transformed that terrible drive into the most powerful decision I've ever made. I didn't get much sleep that night. By the time I arrived at my Seattle building's parking garage, the sky had turned a light gray. My flat was on the 32nd floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made me feel awful. I'd tell my parents I was renting a room with housemates while my badge for Skyline Sync's private elevator sat on a hanger by the door. That morning, I left my luggage inside, ignored the unmade bed, and went straight to my work. I opened my laptop, pressed the record button on a blank video call window, and began chatting to myself, Lydia, and future me who might forget how this felt. "Day 0, I announced. "My father told me to live on the streets because he thinks I don't have a real job. He has no idea that my little computer keeps 428 remote teams running all over the world. 3 weeks from now, Horizon Dynamics will declare that they have standardized on Skyline Sync. 3 weeks from now, my face will be in the same local paper he reads while eating his eggs and complaining about the economy. The strange thing is, I'm not sure I want him to be proud of me anymore." Then I did something I hadn't done before. I launched a new document called Everything They Don't Know. Instead of a standard shot montage, my mind moved through bullet points as my fingers flew. My first client came at the age of 24, and I worked nights after leaving my corporate job. I left that job when I was 27. I overslept and missed Jordan's graduation since I was on Zoom with a Singaporean client. Dad called me selfish. I didn't tell them I was paying Mom's medical bills discreetly last year. They felt the hospital was simply being courteous. The financial meeting is scheduled for Tuesday. The projected ARR following the Horizon contract quarter is $19.6 million. Personal net worth exceeds 8 digits. Emotional net worth with family, overdrafted. Have you ever listed your own life and realized you've been telling a whole different story in your head than your family does? The following days merged into what felt like a task list that I had not agreed to but was driven to finish. I called Horizon's legal staff to finalize the arrangements. I called an emergency meeting with my own board to lock in valuation before rumors spread. I had a late-night debugging session with my lead engineer following a brief failure in Europe, which may have given Horizon pause. Dad then called, since life has a sense of humor. His name on the screen made my stomach lurch. A part of me hoped he'd soften and admit he'd overreacted. Instead, when I responded, his tone was bland and almost bored. "Just checking if you've come to your senses yet," he was saying. "You find a real job, Harper, or are you still chasing fairy dust?" I glanced at the lines of code streaming over my second monitor. "I'm working," I responded. "I have a big contract finalizing in a few days." He snorted. "You and your contracts. Look, you're still on our family phone plan. Your mother thinks we should keep paying for it until you get settled. I don't see the point in funding your little rebellion. You want to live on your own terms. You pay your own bills. When the next invoice hits, I'm canceling your line." It was nearly funny. My phone line costs them $55 each month. Earlier that day, a vendor had invoiced Skyline Sync for $125,000, which we paid without blinking. "Don't worry about it," I said. "I'll take care of everything from now on." "We'll see," he murmured before hanging up. That click went deeper than the threat. It was not about money. It was about removing accountability. The message was plain. If I fail now, it is solely my fault. That night, while my team practiced Horizon's onboarding procedure repeatedly, I added another sentence to my document. They did not simply throw me out of the house. They took away my final justification to stay little. In between slide decks and contract red lines, a question lingered in my thoughts. Would you still be willing to start anything large if you knew every safety net behind you was about to be cut? I realized I already had. The Horizon Dynamics announcement week felt like standing in the middle of a storm of email messages and calendar alerts. On Monday, the CEO's assistant verified the combined press release timetable. On Tuesday, our public relations agency sent over the title, Horizon Dynamics Standardizes Global Remote Operations on Skyline Sync. On Wednesday, Blair traveled up from San Francisco to guide me through last-minute talking points for the live stream signing. They're not just a client, he told me as we sat in Cityscape's glass-walled conference room, which overlooked the Seattle cityscape. They're a signal. Once this goes public, every mid-market company that's been watching from the sidelines will call. You're about to jump tears, Harper. I nodded, but my thoughts kept returning to my father's remarks. Go live on the streets. I was curious what he would think if he saw the view from this conference room. If he learned that the rent for this floor alone would likely cover his company's payroll for several months. At the same time, miles away in our old neighborhood, my name began to surface in talks I was not involved in. My aunt forwarded Dad a link she found on LinkedIn when I was rehearsing my speech, which I had no idea about at the time. Isn't this Harper's company? She'd written on Skyline Sync's page, where the teaser for the Horizon announcement had just been posted. My father, who barely tolerates smartphones, clicked the link nevertheless. He noticed my headshot beside the phrases founder and CEO, the number of followers, and the enthusiastic remarks from people he had never heard of. His initial feeling was not pride, it was suspicion. According to my cousin, who later informed me, he scoffed at the screen. Anyone can put CEO on the internet, he had said, doesn't mean it's real. Back in Seattle, we didn't have time to worry about his denials. The Horizon team flew in, caterers and AV professionals flocked to our office. We transformed our open area into a mini-stage with skyline banners, a giant screen displaying a live dashboard of our uptime figures, and rows of chairs for staff and reporters. Lydia texted me images from her living room in Portland, where she'd set up food and watched the live stream like it was a movie premiere. Front row seat to your revenge arc, she added, beside a fire emoji. On the morning of the signing, I dressed in a blue blazer, modest jewelry, and pulled back hair. No overcompensation, no sequins, just crisp lines that said, I know exactly what I'm doing. As makeup artists finished fussing over the Horizon CEO in the green room, Archer, my old college friend turned tech writer, leaned over to me with a smile. Off the record, he muttered. Once this goes live, your estimated ARR is what, $19.6 million? You realize you're about to become the overnight success? People in my comments enjoy arguing about overnight success. 12 years of late nights were distilled into 2 words. I nearly laughed. Just make sure you spell my name right, I told you. What I didn't realize until later was that my father's name would also appear on the screen that day. Archer freelanced for a local news network, which picked up the Horizon story for their business feature. They liked the angle. Small-town lady from Washington creates software for huge enterprises. Between the weather report and the construction update, a producer inserted a clip from our live feed. My parents' TV flickered with the Skyline logo as I was on stage adjusting my mic. My visage, which my father still perceived as the daughter who squandered her potential, dominated his living room, confident and smiling, standing beneath a banner reading Skyline Sync X Horizon Dynamic Strategic Partnership. As I stepped onto the stage in Seattle to a round of applause, my father lowered the remote in surprise. Margaret Bennett, he exclaimed, come here, isn't that Harper? I stepped up to the stage, the studio lights glaring into my skin, and glanced out at the sea of people. My team, Horizon executives, reporters, and a small group of investors. The large screen behind me exhibited Skyline Sync's interface, which was clean and serene in contrast to the tumult in my chest. Thank you all for being here, I said. When I wrote the first lines of code for Skyline Sync in a cramped studio apartment, I didn't imagine we'd one day be helping companies like Horizon Dynamics coordinate teams across 28 time zones. I just knew there had to be a better way for people to work together without losing their minds or their humanity. I discussed remote employment and how people in small villages and major cities should have equal access to meaningful careers. I discussed the product's development staff, including how many of them came from families that believed their computer work was fake. I didn't mention my father urging me to go live on the streets 3 nights before, but it was present in every syllable, giving them weight. When I finished, the audience exploded with cheers. Horizon CEO joined me in signing the agreement, with cameras zooming in as we transferred folders. On the screen behind us, a graphic appeared. The projected annual revenue impact is $19,600,000 or more. My father noticed the number and stopped breathing for a split second. Following the signing, a reporter from the local station approached for a lengthy Q&A. It was intended to be a typical discussion about trends, remote work, and the future. Then Archer lifted his hand. He had warned me earlier. Do you mind if we talk about where you came from? He inquired, half smiling. A lot of our viewers are from your hometown. I swallowed. Part of me wanted to maintain it on the surface. Another part of me heard Lydia's voice in my head. Use it. Sure, I responded. I grew up in a small town where most people worked with their hands. Construction, nursing, mechanics, tech felt like something that belonged to other places. When I started working online, a lot of people, even in my own family, thought it wasn't real work, that I was wasting my time. And now? Archer inquired. Now, Skyline Sync employs over 110 people and supports thousands of jobs indirectly, I told them. So I guess it turned out to be real enough. The audience laughed quietly. The camera pans across the crowd. No one in Seattle was aware that a man in a Washington living room was squeezing his remote so tightly that his knuckles were white. They didn't hear him growl, "Why didn't she tell us?" Mom, who sat beside him, didn't respond. She only looked at the lower third banner that said, "Local Founders Startup Hits Multi-Million-Dollar Milestone," and tried to reconcile the calm, articulate woman on the screen with the daughter she'd seen leave the house with tears in her eyes. When the piece concluded, they should have turned off the television and proceeded silently. Instead, my father did something very on brand. He chose to confront me in person. It was not difficult to find me. At the end of the program, the broadcaster indicated where the event would take place. While I was thanking my crew and posing for photos, my phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. "We're outside." I froze. Lydia was viewing the webcast and texted me at the same moment. "Is that Dad's truck in the background of one of the crowd shots, or am I hallucinating?" I handed my champagne glass to an intern and proceeded into the foyer, my heart pounding. I could see them through the glass doors. My father wore a faded work jacket, my mother clutched her handbag, and Jordan remained in scrubs, arms folded, expression impassive. They seemed completely out of place among the suits and lanyards. I briefly pondered turning back. Then another instinct took over, the one that had kept me writing code despite everyone telling me to find a real job. I pushed open the door. "You came?" I answered, cautiously. My father did not squander time. $19.6 million, he urged, his voice quiet yet harsh. "We saw the number. We saw you on TV. What is this, Harper?" My mother flinched at his tone. People in the lobby started to look our way. "It's my company," I said, maintaining my chin level. "The same one I've been working on for years." Jordan's eyes narrowed. "You never said it was like this," she replied. "You made it sound like some hobby." Maybe because every time I mentioned it, someone made a joke about me playing on the computer, I blurted out before I could stop myself. The words hovered between us. My dad's jaw clenched. "We had to find out from the television that our daughter is what? Some kind of big shot? You couldn't trust your own family with the truth? Have you ever been accused of betraying those who had just discarded you?" The irony tasted sour. "3 nights ago," I whispered, "you told me to go live on the streets. You said if I failed, it was my problem. You turned off the porch light while I was still walking down the path." His ears turned crimson. "I was trying to scare you into growing up." "I grew up," I responded. "You just weren't paying attention." The lobby suddenly felt smaller, and the air thicker. A couple of reporters stood at the entrance, pretending not to watch. Employees passed by, their gazes shifting between my face and my father's tense jaw. If I raised my voice, it would become a show. If I remained silent, my father would once again have control of the story. I chose the third option. "Come with me," I said, gesturing to a smaller side room off the main hall. It featured glass walls, luxurious chairs, and, most significantly, a giant screen hanging on the wall. The ideal spot to demonstrate rather than tell. They followed reluctantly. When I got inside, I closed the door but did not pull the blinds. "Let them see," I reasoned. "Let everyone see." My father crossed his arms and planted his feet, as if he were preparing for a battle. "I don't need a tour of your fancy office," he said abruptly. "I need to understand how my own daughter has been hiding millions of dollars from her family." Something within me burst into focus. "Hiding?" I repeated. "Dad, I wasn't hiding. I was surviving. There's a difference." I used the remote to sync my laptop to the screen with a few taps. Skyline Sync's admin dashboard took up the entire screen. Live user counts, global server uptimes, and, in the upper corner, our current ARR number, all updated in real time. 19,842,300. My mother's hand rose to her mouth. Jordan's eyes widened. My father blinked and leaned forward, looking for something to dismiss. "Anyone can fake numbers on a TV," he murmured. I nearly laughed. "You think I hacked the TV to impress you?" I switched to the Horizon contract description, logos, legal signatures, and bank routing numbers. Then, taking a big breath, I launched my personal banking app and slid the window to the screen. My balances seemed painfully apparent. "This is my reality," I replied softly. "This is what playing on the computer got me. And this," I glanced back toward the main room where the partnership celebration proceeded, "is only the beginning. Have you ever wished to show someone every receipt for the times they underestimated you?" This was the moment. My father gazed at the numbers and then at me. For the first time, he appeared to be terrified rather than angry.